Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. As you may have noticed, I'm not your host, Arjun. My name is Vuk Zlatarov and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Poddster. Now, today's guest is a truly remarkable individual, an influential podcaster in the Middle East and renowned thought leader in the financial services space. Amassing over 3 million lifetime views on YouTube, his podcast was recognized as a MENA business podcast to look out for by Forbes Middle East within weeks of its debut in 2021. Throughout its 3 groundbreaking seasons, his show has often climbed to the top 5 spots on Apple Podcasts in the UAE and Egypt. No surprise, considering the 40,000 listeners across all podcast platforms. Being sponsored by the biggest household names is a true testament to the complete trust in the podcast and its host to deliver relevant, insightful, and unforgettable interviews that don't pull any punches. Previous guests include founders, executives, and innovators who are shaping the financial services industry and beyond. In his own right, our guest today is an established LinkedIn top voice in the fintech sector and a sought-after keynote speaker who frequently shares his experience across some of the leading festivals and forums around the world. Personally, I always describe him as an unstoppable force and the most dedicated, determined, and hardworking podcaster I know. Arjun Singh, welcome to the couch. I hope the couch is comfortable.
Thanks, Vuk. Thanks. It is comfortable. I must say that I think over the 100 episodes, I haven't sat on this couch much, maybe once or twice in the past.
100 episodes behind us, massive milestone. How do you feel?
So part of me feels incredibly proud. I think there is an element that, we've made it happen. There was no target. It started as an experiment. So I feel proud. I feel incredibly lucky because the partners we've had. I feel fortunate that, at the right time I met you and you kind of made it all happen, because if I didn't have that initial push from, I guess, yourself and a lot of others, it wouldn't have happened. If you remember the first time we requested you to come and record a podcast for me, I actually refused to go in front of the camera, right? Now I'm 100 episodes. And most importantly, I feel incredibly educated, right? Because I've had over 100 minds who've sat and had some very deep conversations on very important topics. And I say this again and again, that for me it is a learning journey, and therefore it does not feel like hard work.
Absolutely. I want to unpack a few topics. And the first one is really about consistency and motivation to keep moving. Recording 100 episodes requires an incredible amount of effort and commitment. No matter what do you do in life, if you put in that much effort, you are most likely going to succeed. The rule of 10,000 hours, right? Where are you finding your motivation to keep moving forward?
This is my perspective, right? There's a lot of effort, there's a lot of hard work, but nowhere near as much as people think that this requires. And I think there's 2-3 reasons for it, right? One is, for me, this is part of what I do every day of my life, right? I'm deeply immersed in the topic of financial services and fintech. So for me, this is just part of what I do every day. Secondly, and this is not a plug for Poddster, I did the right thing. I went professional from day one, right? And it takes away all the stuff that typically podcasters might have to learn. And I haven't, right? So I do not know what happens behind the scene. I do not know what the production capability is. For me, it's a very simple process. In very simple terms, I come, I sit where you are. I usually have an incredibly smart person or persons sitting here, and we have a great conversation. Thirdly, it's a topic, as I said, I'm fairly comfortable with, right? So the preparation for these sessions is not as arduous as someone might have to, right? So I think the motivation comes from the fact that I like learning. That is something I've always had as a part of who I am as a persona. This has been incredible contributor towards learning. That's where the primary motivation comes from. It sort of works with everybody's schedule. We do it late on a Friday evening or sometimes over the weekend, so it doesn't really intrude into my working schedule. And we have a pretty well-oiled machine now behind supporting me.
Yeah, I've known you now for long enough to say that you're always humble and you don't like to talk about things that people around you are sometimes more aware than you are. There is a common factor between people who push through and record and reach these milestones, and I think passion is number one. I think that you're extremely passionate about the conversations that you're taking, and that helps people that are sitting across you feel comfortable and give the best of themselves.
Again, I go back. So yes, it's passion. Yes, it's hard work. It's learning. But to me, this is just fits so well in what I do every day of my life that it's just become who I am, right? So I don't see Couchonomics as something that is separated and, oh God, I have to give some time to Couchonomics. It's, I'm on a plane all the time, and I always, sit down on a plane, I think about my next episode, and, 20 minutes later, I have my 15 questions I want to ask.
Yeah.
Right. So
would you agree that that's formula for anything that you're trying to do in life? If you manage to hit that flow, that's probably the way to progress and succeed.
Yeah, I totally agreed, right? So the formula is, I think there's a very, very simple statement, right? If you enjoy what you do, it doesn't feel like work, right?
What's very interesting about Couchonomics is that over these 3 years, Couchonomics became more than a podcast, really. It became almost a movement, a community. And many business gurus and influencers these days are saying that any business in the future will depend on building a community around them. How do you feel about that?
You're correct. We actually have a newsletter which goes by the name Couchonomics Crunch. It's, I think, got nearly 25 to 27,000 subscribers. Now we have more people wanting to come on to the newsletter, which I want to turn into a platform, right? It's not about Arjun. It's again about a platform. We've taken the show now to Saudi Arabia, where we're partnering with Jeel, which is the innovation arm for Riyadh Bank, which is a very, very large bank. We did an amazing collaboration last year with Singapore FinTech Festival, which, to be honest with you, was one of the crowning glories for the brand. And then there's another passion project that me and a few other people share, which is creation of a grassroots community, which is called FinTech Tuesdays, which you can see behind me, right? And Couchonomics had a lot of influence into that initial days, right? In sense, and a lot of the people who've come on the Couchonomics are incredible supporters of that community. So yes, the dots are connecting. I have no clue where this is all going to head. Right. But I think that, to me, all of these will remain as passion projects for me.
Lovely. I mean, I think this is really the formula for anyone even trying to get into this space. Talking about podcasting now, that is an underlying topic of Couchonomics, obviously, a format that started peaking and growing over the last few years. If there is one advice that can be given to anyone trying to start or starting, it's really passion.
Agreed.
Follow the passion, and the passion will lead you to the opportunities that can take your show to the next level. We've been 3 years in 100 episodes. I know that there is no really a clear plan or a vision where we are going to end up. But how do you see Couchonomics evolving in season 4?
So here are some initial thoughts, and obviously we need to workshop this together, and maybe bring a couple of more people into sort of saying, how do we, it's not about taking it to the next level. I don't think it's about the next level. It's about, I guess, the next version of it. I think so. 2-3 things are critical. I think one is we want to make the most of, now that we are present in Saudi Arabia, right? And actually, Saudi Arabia is an interesting scene. So I do want to record more in the kingdom, and I spend half my week there in any case, so I think that fits naturally. So that's one area. Secondly, I do think now we are ready to take the show beyond, if I may say, the MENA region, right? Which means I think we will need to create a more a more stable online platform. I think this season we've done quite a few, and we've got some great guys, right? We've had NPCI from India, we've had Kaspi from Kazakhstan, right? We've had Swapnendu Mohanty from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So we've had some amazing guests already by the fact that we've moved on to that platform. And I think it's very important now that we are becoming a global fintech hub, right, in this part of the world, that we actually bring the international voices. So I think that's the second dimension. Thirdly, I do think that less is more. I think what we might do is focus on doing maybe 30 to 35 episodes. So rather than the 40, we might bring it down to 30 to 35 and maybe do slightly more tighter 35-minute episodes, right? Rather than sort of the slightly longer versions that we have sometimes, which go on for about an hour. That's largely because I speak too much myself as a host. So I think those are the things, but I do think we need to think about some of the other stuff. How do we connect the dots with possibly other platforms? How do we connect, how do we get more on the, if I may say, I'm very keen to reach out to the younger population. So maybe we want to do something with the schools here. So, we get these episodes into the schools, especially for the kids who are in the last couple of years, their journey. Those are kind of the initial thoughts on what season 4 might have.
Exciting times. I think that there is a lot of interesting things ahead, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm too, and I think this is as much time as I want on the couch. I prefer to be back on my yellow chair, right? That's where I feel.
Not before we run through a quiz that we have. Let's see how well do you know your show.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
We've prepared a few questions for you. If you do well, we might have a small reward, a gift for you.
Okay.
The first question is, what are the lifetime views of Couchonomics content on YouTube? A, 1.2 million. B, 3.1 million. C, 5.5 million.
I'd love it to be 5.5, but I think it's the middle number.
3.1.
Yeah.
B is correct answer, 3.1. All right, question number 2. Over the course of Couchonomics, how many total team members have contributed behind the scenes from season 1 to today? A, 9. B, 12. C, 17.
That's a hard one. So because there's behind the scene who I speak to, and then there are people behind the scene who I actually don't interact. So I'll go with the biggest number, 17.
17 is a correct number.
Thank you.
You did say that there is a force behind, and I think that there are people who are contributing to the show.
Yes, totally, without a doubt.
Inside and outside, but I think the biggest contributor really can't even fit the brackets. The biggest contributors are the listeners.
Yes.
Without the listeners and people who are tuning in, there wouldn't be a show. What can you say to those listeners?
Well, I think there's nothing more than a thank you, right? But I do think it's very, very important that the word spreads, right? And it's not my word, it's the word of the people who sit on the couch, and that's the beauty of this show, right? I get to write a lot. I write a lot, and I think there's a lot of, I guess, readership that I have on that side. But I think it's important that people who run this couch or virtually are heard. So a big thank you. All right,
moving to the next question. You typically aim to keep your episodes around 45 minutes. You said 35, but we always go over.
No, we want to be 35.
We want to be 35. We end up doing 45 most of the time,
right?
But we very often go beyond that. So, who was the guest featured on your longest episode to date?
So I know this.
I have 3 options.
Okay.
Let's see if you know. Are you sure you know?
I know. I don't even need you to tell me who it was.
Because it's a very close call. We're talking about seconds in difference.
Oh, God. Okay.
We're talking about actually seconds in difference.
Go on.
All right. So A, Khalil Alami, Teller CEO. B, Philip Bahoshi, CEO of Magnet. Or C, Peter de Kaluwe, CEO of Tunes. They are actually all within the bracket of, and I will tell you, under 2 minutes.
I go with Peter.
Peter is the second one. Number 1 is Khalil Alami, 1 hour 18 minutes.
Oh, God.
Followed by Peter, 1 hour 16 minutes. And then Philip in the 3rd place, 1 hour 15 minutes.
God, I didn't know we went so long. Okay.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure if Khalil is tuning in, he would be proud that he spoke about Teller for an hour and 18 minutes.
We need to have a separate champion.
I think we should definitely drop him an email.
Good question for the listeners would be, hey guys, is 1 hour 18 minutes the length that you enjoy tuning in? or we should look into a shortening? Because here's my point of view. Very often we get a question how long the episode should last. And I always say episodes should last for as long as you can keep providing value. If you can keep providing value for 1.5 hours, feel free to do so. So I don't think there is really a straight answer, whether we should split it in 2 parts, perhaps, but people also can tune in 2 different times and just continue the episodes.
No, you're right. And I think that the way I listen to podcasts all the time is I never listen to a podcast at one go. I tend to stagger an episode over 3 or 4 bits and pieces, because what I do is I might hear it on while I jump onto a flight, or I might be in a taxi ride, or late in the evening or early in the morning. So, and I hope people are doing that, right? Nobody is expected to sit on a 45 minutes or an hour-long episode at one go, unless you're, in an incredibly long drive and you find a topic particularly interesting. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I do think that I think if we can do the 35 to 40-minute episodes, I think they'll just be a little bit more punchier. I think, and that's it. And I think we just need to make these conversations more and more punchier as we go up. Not punchier in the sense that I need to ask hard questions, which I will continue to, but I think more meaningful questions. But you're right. I don't think there's a length to the show.
I agree. All right. So far, 2 out of 3.
Okay.
I don't think you have a lot more space for making mistakes if you want to get that award. Okay, number 4. Couchonomics has covered a wide range of industries and sectors, but which of the following topics was discussed in episode 1 of the podcast? A, fintech. B, startups. C, financial inclusion.
Startups. It was Roberto Crocci.
That's an accurate answer. Yeah, I still remember that episode, first episode, Roberto walking into the studio.
That was startups, right?
It was startups.
Yeah, it was startups, yes. And there was a reason why we started with Roberto, because he was at Microsoft at that time.
Yeah.
And he was, I think it was called Microsoft for Startups.
Correct.
And there was a reason I wanted to start with startups, because at the end of the day, the fintech ecosystem 3 years ago, to be honest, was much more nascency than it is. And actually, pretty much everybody in the market here were startups, right? Now we've started to see scale-ups and some who've actually become unicorns too, right? So during this duration, we've seen, and I've had quite a lot of them here on Hussam's been here from Tabi, Abdul Majid's been here from Tamara, M2P, who's also a sponsor, Madhu, I think they're a near unicorn, or a soonicorn as they call it. They've been on the show. So, these guys have all gone from being startups to being, quite formidable forces.
And it's incredible to be in the first row and to observe this growth phase, looking at other parts of the world like Silicon Valley, and listening to the stories of the VCs who've seen it all, who've been there before and after. It's really amazing to be in the first row and observe that. All right, so 3 out of 4, you can still make it. The last one is critical. So this is the question number 5.
I hope it's not that tough.
All right, so today your daughter Sarah joined us here to help us celebrate the 100th episode, right? But it's not her first time in the show.
No.
You remember her first time?
I do.
So A, it was on episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
B, it was on episode 6. C, it was on episode 7.
Oh, that's quite hard. You can't ask me which episode number it was. I can say that it was with Verity, and she questioned Dina.
That's partially correct answer.
Partially correct. I don't know. Episode 7. I have no clue. It was episode 5. It was episode 5. There you go.
If you said episode 5, it would be a correct answer, but unfortunately, you said episode 7, but we still love you, Arjun, so you're still going to get the gift.
Thank you.
But that was really a great moment, and you mentioned previously that we should perhaps step into high schools and start creating some content on financial literature, right? And I think that's actually a great angle.
No, we want to do it. I've tried to do it previously. I just didn't push hard enough, but I do think that I will reach out to some of the schools. I might even reach out to KHDA directly, because I do think the content we're developing is actually very educational, right? And why shouldn't it be provided? It's free of cost.
Very needed.
Yeah.
And very needed.
It's very needed, right? Yes, especially in the digital age. I think kids are growing up in an era which is incredibly interesting, right? We grew up with counting cash, with all due respect. This generation has form factors that you cannot even imagine. There is more change than that's coming. And actually, I think it's important for them to understand the value of money. which is another important aspect. And why would any school or educational institution deprive their students content from some of the brightest minds there are in this region? So we're not, as always, we've never been for profit. We're not going to make money. So I will this time. I am going to put my back into it, and it doesn't matter how high I need to go up into the chain. I think we're going to push this content into some sort of an educational format.
And I think that might end up creating the biggest impact out of all.
You're completely correct. And this is the next generation of innovators, right? These are the next generation of executives. So let's augment their education and learning journey.
Let's do it. All right. We're going to ask our DOP, the director behind the scenes, G, to hand us over the small
gift. You actually have a gift for me?
Award.